If they thought they could get away with it again, they would gladly do it again. And what you have to understand is the nature of what is going on when it comes to the control factors that the establishment needs to implement the structures that they want in society. Well, these global pandemics surely do give them a lot of recourse and a lot of ground that they can take because people have been propagandized into a state of fear, and with it, they are so much more willing to acquiesce their freedoms with which they will never get back. And with it, the children that they raise will never realize the freedoms they had stolen from them because when it came down to it, their parents failed them before they were even here. Let's go ahead and jump into it. What we see is the nature of a new possible virus circulating the planet, and with it, we see China is now facing a new mystery illness. What I find so fascinating about this is, like I've already said, if they could get away with it, they would do this again. And I wonder if they'll actually try it. But what we see is, while there does not appear to be anything novel about this virus, we can see that the narrative and how the corporate press is reporting on it is very much akin to exactly how they were doing prior. They're sticking to one script, and with it, that's all they're purporting. Now let's get into it. From Forbes, China faces new mysterious pneumonia outbreak. WHO requests more info. November 23rd, 2023. Isn't that interesting? I've seen this episode before, I swear. Maybe it's just a rerun, I don't know. Mysterious and pneumonia are two words that you typically don't want to see together. Recently, clusters of mysterious pneumonia cases have emerged among children in northern China. The mystery is that the cause of these pneumonia cases are still unknown. The World Health Organization has to take any such outbreak very serious, as evidenced by, the whole COVID pandemic. What we see is the WHO has officially requested more information from China's government on what the WHO statement described as a recent increase in respiratory illnesses and reported clusters of pneumonia in children in the country. This doesn't mean that you should start using the P word again and start hoarding rolls of toilet paper, but the situation does warrant closer monitoring. And realistically, can we trust any of the information coming out of the Chinese government when it comes to what they disseminate to the WHO? We can't even trust the WHO because they were part of the people who were purporting the lie of what was going on with the nature of zoonotic origin. So many people within the establishment class, the media class, all consistently lied about everything that was going on surrounding the pandemic, the forced medical intervention, the mandates, everything. And with it, they will gladly gaslight you and act like it never happened, even though they will still talk about the subject of viruses and pandemics themselves. They will completely avoid their culpability in the nature of destroying people's ability to move upward through the economic ladder, and they will gladly lambast you and beat you with the stick of morality and claim their benevolence of being a good person solely based on the standard that they did the right thing because they got the mask and they got their vaccine. And don't you know that that makes them noble because they did what they did for other people, even though it's been proven what they did for other people didn't actually do anything to stop the spread of the virus. Now what we see, WHO seeks answers from China about mystery outbreak of respiratory illness. In recent days, local media in cities such as Xinjiang, which is not the city, I just read something that I was thinking about. I was thinking about the Xinjiang province. I don't know what that says. The Xi'an in northwest China have posted videos online of hospitals crowded with parents and children waiting to be seen by medics. Well. If that isn't reminiscent of what was going on during the nature of what first happened during the COVID pandemic when the shutdowns were happening and all of the information coming out of China was the videos of people just dropping dead in the street, well, what do we see? We see that we still can't trust anything that comes out of the Chinese Communist Party, nor that of the WHO or the United States government or any of these medical bodies that are mandated and top-down regulated by institutions like the WHO. Why? Because we've seen that they have been proven untrustworthy. Now, what do we see? China tells WHO no unusual or novel pathogens in the pneumonia outbreak, reports that children in hospitals in Beijing and other cities are overwhelmed with sick children. Well, I remember the reports that the hospitals in New York were overwhelmed, and that wasn't a thing. I remember reports that hospitals in China were overwhelmed, but it was because of the nature of their testing and how they were doing that. So many of the lies that have been consistently pushed surrounding the entirety of what's going on with all of COVID and the virus and every other pathogen that will soon come, because the thing is, let's say that we really do have a really dangerous pandemic that comes in the future. Well, so many people are not going to trust the narrative that the establishment hands them because you've proven yourself untrustworthy. So in a moment of true crisis, no one's going to believe you because you've been proven as nothing more than the boy who cries wolf. Now, what do we see here? Man infected with mysterious virus in China. And here we see, this is one of the first men who they talk about who ended up dying in China. It says a 61-year-old man has died from pneumonia in the central Chinese city of Wuhan after an outbreak of a yet-to-be-identified virus, while 7 others are in critical condition, the Wuhan health authorities said on Saturday. Well, isn't that interesting? We can see that this was the start of it, and now they're starting off with children. It's almost like the narrative is shifted, And with it, we can see that it's a much easier jumping off point to go ahead and scare people, because you'll be talking about the process of their children being in threat, than it would be talking about you being in threat. And I do not actually know if that's the case. I'm stating that that would be a very good propaganda tactic if it was something that was wished to be used by the establishment so they could restructure how people are supposed to orient themselves through, I don't know, like an election in 2024 or something, you know, something ridiculous like that that would never happen. All right. Now, here's the thing that I actually want to do before I jump into the rest of it. I just thought about this. I have a clip of so many of the lies purported by the establishment and then the effects from their lies. And it's just a compilation of people like Anthony Fauci in the journalist class talking and spewing their dribble. I'm going to go ahead and throw that up here, and then we'll jump into the rest of this video.
But they're really criticizing science because I represent science.
If you're vaccinated, you really don't need to worry about getting it in a way that's serious or transmitting it.
That is true. That is correct, Chris. It'll either protect you completely against infection, and the chances are very likely that you'll not be able to transmit it to other people. The risk is extremely low of transmitting it to anybody else. Full stop. Vaccinated people are clearly capable of transmitting the infection. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better. If people are not wearing masks, then maybe we should be mandating it. I often myself wear 2 masks.
And I'm quoting you now, at the population level, masks work at the margins, maybe 10%. To hear that they only work at the margins, maybe 10%, would make a lot of people ask, okay, then why was I wearing a mask?
You're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science when you say that this is going to go away tomorrow like magic, when you know that there's no chance it's going to just disappear. We hope this just goes away, burns itself out.
So my question is, why weren't you straight with the American people about this to begin with?
So the bottom line is, it's a guesstimate. I gave a range.
It seemed in that quote to suggest that you were basing your recommendation on polling and what people could accept. Is that not what you meant?
No, I mean, it's a bit of that.
We're seeing all of these school closures around the country. Is that the right move for children and families?
You know, and I think what's going on right now is generally an appropriate approach. You want to start doing something to socially distance yourself. How dramatic that is, closing schools and doing other things, should be proportionate.
It went too far, that particularly for kids who couldn't go to school except remotely, that it's forever damaged them.
Well, I don't think it's forever irreparably damaged anyone.
The U.S. Surgeon General has called it an urgent public health crisis, a devastating decline in the mental health of kids across the country. According to the CDC, the rates of suicide, self-harm, anxiety, and depression are up among adolescents.
And the record will show, Neil, that we didn't recommend shutting everything down. First of all, I didn't recommend locking anything down. I recommended to the president that we shut the country down. And that was a very difficult decision because I knew it would have serious economic consequences, which it did. Yeah. Because if you look at the people that are politicizing me, there's somebody that all the way over on one level. But there are a lot of other people who look upon me the way they should, as a non-political person that I am. They're not doing it because they say they don't want to do it. They're Republicans, they don't like to be told what to do. And we got to break that. But now is the time to do what you're told.
Where did this virus come from, do you think, today? Did it come from a lab? Was it man-made?
When you have the animal-human interface and you have animals that come out of the wild that are sold at these open, what they call them, wet markets.
Place of origin was not within the market itself.
No, I don't think you could say that.
There's a report today that another intelligence arm of the U.S. government, this is inside our energy department, has joined the FBI in concluding that COVID began with a lab leak in China.
That the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute.
We now know that a bat coronavirus was enhanced in a lab. The National Institutes of Health acknowledged that it funded research of a virus that was studied at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The experiment unexpectedly, we're told, made a bat coronavirus more contagious than the original naturally occurring one.
Take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans.
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about.
They took animal viruses that only occur in animals and they increased their transmissibility to humans. How you can say that is not gain of function?
It is not. What we're talking about now is the gain of function research in studies that increase predominantly the transmissibility as well as pathogenesis and alteration of host range of the virus. Nobody's lying here, Senator. It is you. I have to laugh at that. I should be prosecuted.
Absolutely. Every single one of them should be prosecuted, thrown in Gitmo, all of the people responsible, Anthony Fauci, Deborah Birx, the individuals who bear culpability for the nature of what happened, every single one of the COVID tyrants, the journalist class, the scientists who lied, the institutions who are responsible for disseminating this narrative to the public, and with it, establishing a major propaganda network that would then browbeat every single person that then questioned the standard with which was being purported to the people of the world. And with it, if you were someone who had a sane and rational thought process through all of this, and you could logically work yourself to logical endpoints, you understood many of the things that were being purported by the establishment were absolute nonsense. It was felonious bullshit at best, and with it, we can see that you were ostracized from public society and drugged through the mud consistently through the public square, which had become social media, and then you were ostracized and banned from the public square because you weren't allowed to say your piece because what you said countered the narrative that was being delivered by the establishment. Isn't that just fucking something? Now, let's go ahead and jump into the rest of these articles. Man infected with mysterious virus in China dies after outbreak, January 11th, 2020. First death from China mystery illness outbreak, January 11th, 2020. Outbreak of virus from China declared global emergency, January 30th. World on alert for potential spread of new SARS-like virus found in China, January 2020. Isn't that interesting? A timeline of how the Wuhan coronavirus has spread and how the world has reacted, January 30th, 2020. You know what I can't get over about this article? One, it tells you the exact timeline with which they think the virus took, you know? Except they're wrong. This article is still up for people to read so they can go back and be like, oh yeah, so how did all of that happen? And then they'll go back and they'll get false information from articles like this where they won't actually be able to understand the nature of what really happened. And with it, this is how the establishment will blur the lines of history to go ahead and make sure that the people who claim the lies of what happened in the past will have those who are sitting there saying, no, I read what happened in the history book. That's not true. And you will have people who are exposing counter narratives based on the standards of those who lived the experience and those who claim they understand it because they read it in a book. Isn't that absolutely interesting? Now, what do we see? A timeline of how the Wuhan coronavirus has spread and how the world has reacted. So not only for these articles do they basically all have the exact same title because we have to propagandize you into a certain mindset, but also the timeline that we're going to give you is entirely wrong. Confirmed in clinically diagnosed cases of COVID-19 in China, so it shows the epicenter being Wuhan. Confirmed in clinically diagnosed cases of COVID-19 globally, and then it shows that it's in China and then disseminating across the world. And here you can actually see the dot here. This is in Houston. Now, what do we see? December 31st, 2019, the animal to human jump. And here is where the lie begins. Several people in Wuhan, the capital and largest city in Hubei province, report symptoms caused by a virus that is later tied to a human seafood market, which sells primarily fish and shellfish, but also wild game like beavers, porcupines, and snakes. It's still not clear in what animal the COVID-19 has originated. Well, what do we see here? This is a lie. This is not true, and with it, they still keep this up and do not alter the timeline whatsoever, because as I've said, these are little things and breadcrumbs that will be dropped that will be used to blur the lines so they can disseminate all of the lies that they have told, and with it, people still will not be able to realize that they've been bamboozled to the degree that they've had, because they'll still be able to go back and find the resources that they used to back up their arguments that they're clinging to 10, 20, 30 years down the line if there are people who still actually buy this narrative by then. And all of this let's say, medical intervention and mandate of such things, what do we see? What does this cause? What mindset does this invoke within the populace of the world? CDC reports highest childhood vaccine exemption rate ever in the US. 40 states saw a rise in parents citing religious or other personal concerns for not vaccinating their young children. What the medical community has done unknowingly is turn so many people against them because they no longer trust them, because they don't see you as anything more than a mouthpiece for the pharmaceutical industrial complex. And you've done it to yourself. That's something that people really need to grapple with who are in the medical field, that you have made so many people fall away from grace when it comes to the nature of actually trusting any of the institutions any of you inhabit, solely based on the fact that you purported a lie, and you did so after knowing it, many of the times willingly. And with it, they see what happened with the inflation of the COVID numbers. They saw how hospitals counted the deaths and the people who were sick with COVID and from COVID, dying with COVID or dying from COVID. And so many people have now seen the felonious nature with which, much like any industry, the medical industry is up for regulatory capture. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Thank you for watching if you got this far. Do not fall for the narrative that may come following, let's say, the next wave of viral agents that are going to be infiltrating the planet. Thank you for watching. Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. I do not know if this is going to be the nature of the narrative shifting once more, and with it we'll be seeing that they will be trying to be pushing once more these major tyrannical style lockdowns that they've been invoking across, let's say, all the planet, because we saw that even after we opened up, after, let's say, 2 years, even in places like California where they were still consistently locked down, China stayed locked down. And even to this day, there are some provinces that are alternating in and out of lockdowns, and with it, that's horrific. Thank you for watching. Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Stay lovely, stay great. Peace out.